A very good evening to all of you present here. Welcome once again. We again meet in this 1 week. And I once again, on behalf of EduSoft, welcome you to this session. So starting with the session, earlier we learned about classification, which was talking about discrete, individual, separate, unique values. And in regression, what happens is we do the predictions, we see the change of trends across a period of time, across through continuous values. For example, salary figures in past few months or years, and demographic data in past years. So across a period of time, if we are looking at certain set of values which have been increasing or decreasing during the course of the time, then these values are called continuous values. And when we try to analyze such values, the algorithm or the technique which we apply is called regression technique. So we will discover shortly what regression technique is. But before that, regression involves a very basic primer knowledge of mode, median, mean, range, certain statistics terms these are. And we might be familiar with most of them since our school days. We have dealt with them in one way or other during our school days. And it wouldn't be very difficult to understand them since these are very basics. Let's take them up one by one. First of all, the mode. And again, we will try to understand this with the help of one small example. As I told you, examples are always smaller. In real life, the data would be thousands of records. So imagine thousands of records and imagine these 10 values, 10, 12, I don't know, roughly a couple of values are there. So you see the yellow cells here. This is the data set. These are certain numbers. These numbers could be ages. These numbers could be any data represented in real life. Mode, as we see, mode is actually the value which has been repeated maximum times. Like you see 75 here. 75 in this data set is appearing. I have sorted this data for your convenience. In real life, you wouldn't get sorted data. You have to manage that. So here 75 is the mode because 75 is appearing multiple times in this data set. And generally what happens in real life, you will not find a single mode data set. This is a single mode data set because only one value is repeated in the data set. But in real life, there could be multiple values which are repeating. Such data set will be called multimodal data set. If two values are repeating, it's bimodal, otherwise multimodal data set. So multimodal data sets might be there, or if a very small data set is there, say the data about the students in a school, there could be a possibility of a single mode data set. Now, such data set, if you are trying to figure out the mode, what is the purpose of taking out mode? Why do we want to know what are the repeating values? A lot of useful things can be done from it. For example, if you have the data about the movie's viewership, the mode will tell you which movie is the most popular among the viewers, because that movie's viewership would be repeating. So similar kind of products, most selling book or most preferred product by the people, most liked something or some product, some service by the mass, the frequency of some event, all these things can be simply figured out by the help of mode. And mode, if you remember, we discussed about clustering also. It helps in clustering also when we look at the data set. The repeating values can be separated into different clusters for analysis. So basically, with the help of mode, you can figure out which group of, if you cluster the data. Suppose in this data set, if I cluster the data 51, 56, 57 in a separate cluster, 72 to 78 in a second cluster, and 83 and 89 in the third cluster. Then I can analyze in a particular cluster which cluster has performed best or worst, or which subset is different from the rest of the subsets. So these kind of analysis can be done using simply by looking at the mode. Moving further, if you look at median, median is actually, if you sort the data, then you can simply see which is the middlemost value. Again, that is 75 here. And if the number of records, number of values in the data set are even, then the middle values would be 2, and you simply take the average. So median is very helpful in certain cases. Which cases median is helpful? For example, you have taken a data set and you have taken the average. Now, in an average, for example, if a teacher is taking the average of the marks of the students and 2 of the students have performed very low, suppose they have secured only 5 marks and one student has secured 90 marks, those 5 marks will spoil the average. In such a case, you can go for fixing the values. You can go for looking for the median values, because median values will reflect more of genuine interpretation of the data. So such a data set where very high or very low values are present in the data set, such a data set is called skewed data set, or if you take the average, that average is called skewed average because of very high or low values. And these very high and low values are called outliers. Outliers means these values are pretty far off. They have a bigger difference than other values. 5 marks of a student is very far than as compared to the passing marks. Passing marks could be 40. 5 marks is a big difference. So such 5 marks or 0 marks or 99, suppose that's a batch of average student and one student has got 99. That is also an outlier. So outlier values, it helps in identifying the outlier values. And where do we use such data sets for analysis? We analyze the prices, age, poverty index of an area, performance of the students during budget analysis and salaries analysis. We can use these. So median is also helpful in certain cases, as I told you, to handle the falsehood told by the averages. Now, mode and median understood. We move on to understanding the mean. As I told you, as I told you how average causes problem when outliers are there, median helps in. Mean is just the average of the values available. So you just take the average, and averages sometimes help you very much. Averages are good if the values are pretty much close together. But if there is a very high difference between the values, as I talked about outliers, so if there are no outliers, the values are in a good close range. Like here you see 51 and 89 is a good difference. Suppose all the values were in 70s or 80s, we could have gone for averages. So where do actually averages help us? Averages actually help us in certain cases where we have huge data set, and in that data set I can, if the figures are very close, suppose I have 1,000 records on the basis of age, so the people who are having similar age, I can take their average and the number of records can come down. 1,000 records can come down to a few hundred, because I have eliminated the similar age records and I have just worked with the average. So if you take the average in the data set of the values, you can scale down the data set to a smaller size, and it is easier to handle. Then we come to another statistics term called range. Now, range is simply the difference between the maximum value in the data set and minimum value in the data set. It actually tells you the spread of the data set, the degree of dispersal. If minimum and maximum value are very closer, they should be actually closer to the median, to the middle value. Otherwise, data sets are very, if you have huge data set, then this range value would be higher. So taking range is good for smaller data sets, and range helps you in actually detecting the anomalies in the data. Let's understand this with an example. For example, we took a survey of some people in a locality. Now, looking at the age of the people, I can find out if I take the range of the ages of the people. If the range is pretty much higher, that means the youngsters were also included in the survey. A youngster would be of, say, age 12, and an elderly person would be of age 80. So 80 minus 12 gives me a bigger range. So a bigger range will convince me, okay, during the survey, the participants were of all different ages. The youngsters were not left out, or the elderly people were not left out. But if that range is very short, suppose 50 and 30, so 50 minus 30, this is a very short range. And here I can figure out that many people of young age and many people of elderly age have been excluded in the survey, and the survey has not been taken properly. So I can get the survey data done, survey data collected once again. So these kind of anomalies can be detected by the help of range. So mode, median, mean, and range, they have their own advantages which help you to deal with the data set and to configure or to optimize the data set for artificial intelligence algorithm. Now we come down to something called variance and standard deviation. These two terms are very useful in data analysis. Again, we have this data set where uh, yellow cells, if you see, it's the same numbers. Mode, median, mean, and range I have already calculated there in the green cells. Now, how do we calculate the variance? What is the use of variance that we will look at in a short while? How do we use the variance? Calculate the variance is we take the, we consider the mean of the, you see 71.10 is the average or the mean of the data set. Now, the difference between this average and difference between each of these values is taken. Each value minus the average. So what we get is the first set in blue color, minus 20.10, minus 15.10, and so on. So this is the difference between the average value 71.10 minus 51. So this is how this has been calculated. Now to eliminate the negative values, we have taken the square. When we square something, the negatives are converted into positive. So the square of each of that calculation has been taken in the next column. Minus 20.10 has become 404.01 and so on. And then once you have taken the square of this difference of mean minus value, we simply take the average of this. And that average is actually the variance. So variance is actually the average of the square of the difference of each value in the data set and the mean of that data set. And this variance, if you take the square root of that variance, that will give you standard deviation. Standard deviation is nothing but the square root of the variance which you have calculated. So here we have variance and standard deviation calculated with a small example. As you see, the difference has been taken from the average. This entire set's average is the variance. Now, variance is very useful for people who are involved in risk analysis, like financial institutions, the investors, the share market players. They are very much fond of looking at variance and standard deviation, because variance and standard deviation help us in identifying the risk. Higher the variance, higher the risk. As close as the variance, lower the risk. But the logic by which variance is calculated, it helps us in finding out the risk analysis, in taking the risk analysis. And how do we do that? We pick up the variance which is calculated or the standard deviation which is calculated, and we take the difference of standard deviation and the actual data value. For example, 51 minus 11, 56 minus 11, 57 minus 11. We take the difference, and if that deviation is pretty higher, that means there is a risk. That means these values, these prices are very low, or these prices are very high. So the investor will not invest into that share. So if an investor is looking at a share for analysis for past 1 year, the performance of a share for past 1 year, and in yellow cell, these are the prices of that share. Earlier it was 51, now it is 89, and he takes the difference. Now, if these values are very much fluctuating and the differences are coming between the standard deviation and the actual value is pretty higher or fluctuating, then that investor will not invest his money into that share. That share is very volatile, it is not stable, and it is very difficult to track it and analyze it. So this is how this is how variance and standard deviation help people in figuring out the risk, especially the people who are involved in finance and banking sector, insurance and investment. Well, mode, median, mean, and range, we have calculated, we have seen their importance and the variance and deviation. Now, if we develop the algorithm around these statistics formula and we feed that to a machine, that machine will be able to analyze the data. Here, it's a very small set of data. Imagine a huge bulk of data is given to the machine, then that machine is said to be having the artificial intelligence over analyzing the data. So let us see. Now, we'll look at simple linear regression technique, which is useful in class 9th and 10th are talking about it. So this can be useful for you for class 8, 9, and 10. You can discuss regression, what actually it is. When we analyze the relation between the two or more data values to predict some outcome. For example, you analyze the continuous values of salaries and you predict the next salary. So that outcome, if you're predicting out of a continuous set of data, then that technique is called linear regression or simply regression. And in regression, the predictions are always numeric. You can do the predictions with numbers. In classification, we were doing it in different ways. Yes, no, true, false, but here it is numeric. The variables which we are analyzing, the data values which we are analyzing for prediction are called predictors. And the outcome which we are trying to achieve, which we are trying to bring out, is called predicted value or the predicted variable. It is also called dependent variable because it is depending, its outcome is dependent on the existing values which are being analyzed. Now, where regression is actually used, if you look at the broad application of regression, first of all, regression helps you in deciding whether the data values which you have taken for analysis, are they suitable enough? Are they really affecting the outcome? Have you taken the valid values? Have you taken the genuine values which should be analyzed actually, which should be considered for analysis? So you determine the strength of the predictors. If you make the change in the predictor variable, in the input variable, how does output change at all or does not? If it is not changing at all, or if it is a negligible change, then that kind of predictor or data is not useful for analysis. So you can discard that. Then we analyze the effect, cause and effect thing. How the change in variable which is input, how does it affect the output variable, that we can analyze. And with this phenomena, we can analyze how the trends are changing across the period of time, how a share is performing, how the salaries in the industry are changing, how the food index is changing across the regime, across different regimes in a country. So these three are the broader categories of application. And if we talk about specific applications, then it is we can predict the revenue profit against the expenses, what would be the profit, or what is the performance against the effort done by the candidate, or agricultural studies, environmental studies. All in every industry, we can use regression to predict the trends or to predict the next outcome. Now let us take one simple example to understand regression. Here what I show you, for example, I am a transporter, and in transport, fuel is the lifeblood. So here I have the consumption history of my business. When the fuel price was 55,000, when the fuel price was 55, my fuel consumption was 60,000 liters. The 1,000 figures are converted down into tens figures. So 60 is actually 60,000. So I was consuming 60,000 liters when the fuel was 55 rupees 55. And as you see, as the fuel prices are increasing, the consumption is decreasing. to keep my costs lower, the fuel consumption has gone down. Now, looking at this, I can easily predict what will happen if the fuel touches 100 rupees 100. So I have to think, if fuel is touching rupees 100, how much consumption I have to maintain to keep my business running and let the profits coming in, or at least minimize the costs. So this kind of analysis I can do by the help of regression. Let us see how. If I know Excel and I put the figures into a scatter plot chart, the chart will look like this. If you look at the chart, all the figures are plotted on the chart. You can compare them with the data set. And then a straight line is drawn across the data points. That is the best fit line. Best fit line means the line drawn in such a way that it is closest to every data point. Closest to every data point, then that is a perfect line drawn across the data values. This concept is called best fit or least square. As you see here, the distance in red lines is the distance between the data point and the line drawn across. This is the vertical distance, and this is the horizontal distance between the data points and the trend line. This is called the trend line. These distances are actually taken up and their squares are calculated. This concept is called least square. Lower will be the value of the square, best is the line drawn. So if you want to know how perfect the line is drawn across the values, the squares calculated of the distance should be least. Then such a line is called best fit line. Let us see further how this chart is helping me in predicting the future. If the fuel is crossing 100 or touching 100, actually, this chart is telling me, as a transporter, Mr. David, you have to keep your consumption of fuel to 27, maximum 28,000 liters. I cannot go beyond 27,000 liters to run my business in profit if tomorrow fuel touches rupees 100. So according to this prediction, I will make my strategy further. So this is how regression is working, but this is the graph which is telling me everything. How do we come to this figure statistically by calculation or by algorithm? That we will see in a short while. You must have noticed that the mean of both the values has already been taken there. Fuel price is X variable, fuel consumption is Y variable. Fuel price is actually affecting the fuel consumption. So here fuel price is the predictor variable and fuel consumption is the predicted value. Fuel price is denoted by X, fuel consumption by Y. Let us see how do we go about it. There are certain calculations which you have to do before going into analysis. These calculations are, first of all, you have to count how many data values are there. As you see, there are 8 data values clearly given. You see the yellow color cell, 8 values are there. Then you calculate the sum of fuel prices and the sum of fuel consumption. Here it is. The sum of both the variables is there, all the values. Then you take the square of each of the value of fuel price, and then you take the sum of all those squares. So that is the sum of squares of all the fuel prices. The same thing you need to do with the fuel consumption figures. Sum of squares of fuel consumption. That is also there. And then you multiply the variable X and Y. You multiply the fuel price with the fuel consumption. You take those multiplications together, and then you take the sum of those multiplications also. So we have quite a lot of figures. We have number of values 8 denoted by a small n. We have total fuel prices 541. That is sum of X. Total fuel consumption, that is summation Y. Summation of squares of fuel prices, that is summation X whole square. Sum of squares of fuel consumption, that is summation y whole square, and the sum of the product of fuel price and fuel consumptions, that is summation xy. We have these values ready with us. These values will help us in reaching to the prediction of next variable y if x is 100. As you see here, the formula for predicting variable y is intercept added to the multiplication of slope and the new value, that is rupees 100. X here will be rupees 100. So how do we calculate? We need to calculate the slope of the line. As you see in the graph, the slope of the line needs to be calculated, and the intercept. Intercept means where the line is going to cross the y-axis. So these two values, they can be figured with the help of graph also, but we will do it statistically. So first of all, let us calculate. Let us see how do we come to slope. As you see here, what is this? How do we calculate the slope? The slope's formula is number of values in the data set multiplied by the sum of the products of fuel and fuel price and fuel consumption, the orange colored cell 25918. And this product should be used to subtract the sum of the fuel prices and the sum of the fuel consumption. Their product has to be subtracted from it. Now this whole has to be divided by the difference of the product of n, that is number of values, summation of all the squares of x value minus summation of x value whole square. This is the formula. And as you see, you can figure out, I have placed the figures accordingly in the formula, and we have reached to the value minus 0.64. That is the slope. The slope is calculated as minus 0.64. Next step is to calculate the intercept. Looking at the formula for intercept now. Intercept can be calculated only if you have calculated the slope, because that is used in the formula. So intercept is fairly simple. Average of y is used to deduct what you used to deduct the product of slope and the average of x. So average of x is 67.56. As you see at the top, the mean of the fuel price. The mean of the fuel price is 67.56, and slope was already calculated minus 0.64. They are multiplied. Finally, we have used mean of y, that is 48.50. After the calculation, we have got the intercept as 91.94, or you can say 92. So 92 is the intercept, minus 0.64 is the slope. Now, both values we have, we can apply these values into this formula to calculate y. And when you do that, with the assumed fuel price, that is 100, you come down to exactly 27.64. If you remember, the graph was also showing the same thing. So I have to keep my expenses, keep my consumption of fuel to 27,000 liters if fuel price is touching rupees 100. And accordingly, I can arrange my expenses, my costs, my staff, all other expenses, liabilities, and my profit figures. So accordingly, I will create my business strategy, keeping this fact in mind. So this is one small demo where we are predicting the fuel consumption on assuming that fuel price is going to be 100. Now, what you saw is actually simple regression. As far as the curriculum of class 8th, 9th, 10th is concerned, simple regression is all you have to discuss in the class. But regression, just for your knowledge, I'm telling you, regression is of multiple types. Some common types of regression are here. Like multiple regression is simply when the predictors are more than one. When there are more than one x, x1, x2, x3, x4. If multiple input variables are used to determine the outcome, then it is multiple regression because predictors are multiple. There is something called logistic regression also. Logistic regression answers in yes and no. This kind of technique can be used in classification also, because in classification we try to predict yes, no, true, false, success, unsuccess. So success or failure. So these kind of answers, if you need, you can go for logistic regression. It gives you answer in binary, either yes or no, this or that. Then ridge regression. Ridge regression actually is used where multiple regression, where multiple predictor variables are involved, and it checks sometimes what happens, the multiple variables which you have taken. Suppose you have taken age, weight, height. These variables are going to predict something. Then these variables may be affecting each other also. Age might be affecting height. Height might be affecting age, weight. So if the variables which you have taken for prediction, if they are affecting each other, then we go for ridge regression, which is a more sophisticated algorithm than simple regression. Then there is another approach called lasso regression. So here what happens, we look at if there are several variables. Suppose here there are 20 variables which you are going to analyze to predict something. And out of those 20 variables, you saw that 5 variables are not necessary, but they might be required in future, but they are not necessary for this analysis. So those variables values you can set to 0. So whenever out of multiple predictor variables, if you are setting the values of certain variables to 0 and you are considering the values of only a few other variables, then this approach is called lasso regression. Then polynomial regression, it is just a small modification variation of linear regression. In linear regression, you might have seen the straight line. If I somehow curve the line so that it touches more than more points across the graph, then it is called polynomial regression. In polynomial regression, you don't get a straight line across the data points. The line is slightly curved and it goes smoothly curving through the data points. Then sometimes what happens, we pick up the predictor variables for analysis. Generally this happens, but in certain cases what happens, we do not use the exact values of the predictors. What we do is we calculate the probability values out of those predictors. Suppose there are 20 X variables, 20 predictor variables, and by analyzing them, we do some kind of probability. We calculate some probability. Now these probability values will be used in turn to predict the outcome. We are not directly using the predictor variables. Predictor variables are used to calculate some sort of probability, and that probability is used to predict the outcome. Then such approach is called Bayesian regression. So these are the terms and the definitions of various approaches of regression, which you should know just for your knowledge. I have simplified the definitions for you. If you go online and if you read some about them in the books, it's too technical. So I have watered it down, diluted it for you. Now, when you will read regression across, you will come across a term, regression coefficient. Regression coefficient is nothing but a simple figure which will tell you how much change is occurring in the prediction if the change in predictor is done. For example, if you are changing the predictor by 10, then you can see how much change in prediction is happening. If you're changing the fuel price by 20%, how the outcome is changing. This difference is called regression coefficient. Another scenario is, suppose you have multiple variables for prediction, for analysis. Multiple predictors are there. Now, how you can analyze coefficient? You can change only one variable. Suppose you have 5 predictor variables and you just change one of them, and you do not change, you keep the rest of them fixed. Suppose you have the data of age, height, and weight. You change only age and you keep the weight and height fixed. Then you see the change in the output. This is also called regression coefficient. So the degree of change when you change the predictor variable, how, at what degree, at what is the influence on the prediction, this analysis is called regression coefficient. Now, all said and done about regression, statistics, and everything well and good, by revision or by watching the recording of this session, you can again understand regression well and good. But what happens when you move into the classroom? So here I have suggested an activity to for the classroom, because in lower classes, in class 6, in class 8th, you might not be discussing all this, and it is not in the scope of their book. That is for your knowledge only. What you can do is you can take the class into the field, take a basket and take a ball, and you make the student basket the ball from a distance, let them play, and you note the data, or you involve the student into the whole activity. Ask some of the students to calculate the data, how many shots were there inside the basket and how many outside. And on that data, you ask the students to perform regression or to do some analysis. And what variables you can do: distance from the basket, let the students throw the ball into the basket from say 5 feet, then you change the distance to 8 feet and then 10 feet and see how many shots were successful. You keep that noting down on a piece of paper. Then size of the basket can also be a variable. When the basket would be bigger, the number of shots would be higher, successful shots. Then height of the basket, this height of the basket can also create problems. A basket lower, very low basket would be difficult, very high basket would be difficult. Number of times the ball actually went into the basket and popped off, if you count that shot, how many times this happened. So these are the possible variables which I have suggested: boys versus girl, age of the students. You can involve multiple classes. You can bring in small kids from primary class, grown up kids from class 12, from class 6, class 10, and see, depending on age, how skillfully they are able to do that. So this way you can collect the data and perform regression analysis. Some other examples are students' sport performance versus academic performance. Some students are very good in sports, very poor, very average in academics. So you can analyze there. You took an aptitude test of the students, and then you took a test on the same concept, and the performance is different. So their regression will help you in analysis. Some other examples I have given you here. You can give the task to the students to go and find out height and shoe size data, or the length of the arm and the height. That can be done inside the classroom. You can collect the fictitious figures of population in states and their employment index. Or you can take the students into the field, ask them to throw a ball up high in the sky, and then let them calculate with a stopwatch how much time the ball took to come down to hit the ground. And that data collected 20-30 times, and regression can be done on it. Some other real life data is pollution versus air quality index, the price of shampoos or chocolates with different weights. If you see, a chocolate of 50 gram is this much, and a chocolate of 48 grams. So there are two chocolates of rupees 10, but one would be of 50 grams, the other would be of 48 grams. So you take the weights and the prices, and you analyze the fluctuation of these two figures using regression. So these are certain examples I have given you, which you can take up in the classroom to demonstrate the concept through an activity. And the students will really enjoy this. Well, friends, this is regarding regression, which I plan to share with you the details. What we did, we looked at the basic statistics, uh, which is involved in the regression, which helps us in regression. We saw the terms mean, mode, median, and range, how individually they help in basic analysis of the data set. These actually help in optimizing the data set. If you've collected a lot of figures, a lot of values, you can clean the data set by the help of these particular statistics techniques. And then the final data set can be used after cleaning for regression analysis. I repeat again, regression is good when you have continuous set of values and you have to predict the next possible value. There, this regression technique is involved. As we move into other sessions in future, as you keep coming in this webinar, we will see this practically happening using Python language. I will show you how regression can be done using Python program. So that is for higher classes. So here this is, as I told you, this is an intervention session to make you aware of regression and how the technique works and the basic fundamental. You can visit our YouTube channel also, EduSoft Knowledgeverse. We share the recording, we put up the recordings there also. The previous session's recording is already there, and you can go through it. And this recording will also, latest by Monday, will come up. And we'll anyway share the link also. So need not to worry. So once again, thanks everybody, and good night.